Hello everybody and welcome to Tiger Tales The Lost Stories, the place you'll find stories and fanfictions written and read to you by a host, me, Tiger. All the stories on this channel are in the first person perspective, and that's why it has its very own channel. Now today, I bring you a series that I'm doing, and it's a collaboration with someone called Jared, who is the host of If You Give a Dad a Podcast. I've been on his podcast and he's been on mine, and we are very dear friends now. He came to me with the idea that he wanted to branch off the If You Give a Dad a Podcast to other means. So I took that in a fictional sense, and now we have a series where I give him a prompt and he comes up with what he would literally do with that prompt. For an example, the very first one we did was If You Gave a Dad a Dragon Dagger. I gave Jared the idea of, okay, what if the Dragon Dagger from Power Rangers landed in your lap? And he did exactly what he said he would do. I then write it, and then I add some Tiger Tales jazz, make it flavoursome, and he reads it to you guys. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do in today's video. Jared's back, and today we answer another question. So, let's dive in.
If you give a dad an Autobot. My name is Jared. I live in Universe GAD002, and I was having car troubles. My car was old. Well, not that old, but for a car, it was old. It smelled funny. It made a very weird, clunky noise. I drove a Hyundai Tucson, and as much as I loved the old girl, it was slowly falling apart and costing me a lot of money. I stood in front of the car, the engine rumbling. I stared down at the metallic heart of the car, and the sound of it slowly dying filled my driveway. My wife came outside and handed me a cup of coffee. "Any luck?" she asked me. "I'm afraid not," I said with a sigh. I closed the hood of the car with a hard slam. Then I leaned on the car as I sipped my drink. "You're going to have to ask Ben to take a look and ask him if he don't mind taking a loan," my wife told me. "Yeah, hopefully he won't mind," I muttered. I went to bed with the idea of owing Ben more money playing in my mind. Ben was a good friend, and luckily for me, he was willing to work on the car and let me pay the money on a later time. Ben was a reliable guy, and he was always trusting and good with the kids, and it was a gut punch that I had to ask him to do this again. The next morning, I headed to Ben Baker's Bucket of Bolts, the local mechanic. Ben was writing something down as I walked in. I cleared my throat and announced my arrival. Ben looked up at me and waved me over. "Hey, Jared, how are the kids?" he asked. "Good, yeah, thanks. How's things with you?" I asked him with a weak smile. "Yeah, good. So what can I do for you?" he said with a grin. I gestured him to follow me outside and led him to the car. I popped open the hood, and Ben had a quick look. He stood back up and took a long, deep breath in and an exhausted, daunting sigh out. "Okay, good news. I can have this in an afternoon, and you can have it back in the morning," Ben said. "And the bad news?" I said regrettably. "The bad news is it's going to cost you big bucks," Ben muttered. "Yeah, I worried about that," I sighed. "Look, Jared, we have known each other for a long time. Get that woman who was dumb enough to marry you to bake me some of that oh-so-delicious rosemary focaccia bread and a batch of those peanut butter and marshmallow cupcakes, and we'll call it even," Ben said with a cheeky grin. I burst out in laughter and then agreed to the deal. I then helped Ben get the car into the shop and left it there. I then headed home and told my wife, who also found it incredibly funny. "I will start baking now," my wife chuckled. The kids came in from school. Both looked confused. "Hey, Dad, where's the car?" my son Connie asked me. "I had to take it to the shop," I told him. "Ben is going to hate you," Connie chuckled. "No, you won't, but you guys might have to deal with the school bus for a while," I told the kids. "But why?" my daughter moaned. "We're thinking about finding something smaller, maybe trading it in for something else. We don't know yet, but I cannot keep taking out loans for something that keeps making me take out loans," I explained. Both of the kids rolled their eyes at me, then both went off to do their own things. I spent the rest of my time trying to come up with an idea of what to do with my car situation. The next morning finally came. After a troubled attempt at trying to sleep, I walked the kids to the bus stop and headed to town and found Ben there waiting for me. "Morning," I said halfway through yawning. "Hey, man," Ben replied. He seemed off, like something was wrong. "So how's the old girl doing?" I asked awkwardly. "Well, that's the thing. I'm kind of confused. You see, Well, the thing is, Ben muttered, trying to figure out how to explain himself. Dude, spill it, man, I snapped. Yesterday, I tried to sort out the car. I was sure I could, but I left here with a whole list of things to do. I was prepared to tell you it wouldn't have the car done for another 2 or 3 days. Easy, Ben explained. Okay, so what's the problem? I asked back. The car is fine. I opened the shop this morning and your car is fine, better than fine. It's perfect. It's like it's brand new. It's clean and shiny and it purrs. I don't understand. It's like I'm a version of the elf and the shoemaker, Ben proclaimed. He started sweating. He clearly was shook, so I decided to take a look for myself. I walked into the shop and found my car. And Ben was right. It was clean and shiny. I could see my face as clear in the reflection, the sun bouncing off the car. I opened the door, which no longer creaked when it opened. I climbed in and found the seat rather comfortable. I started the vehicle, and instead of coughing itself to life, it started up with a small purr. The entire car felt like brand new. I was in shock. I then noticed something new, a face insignia on the center of the steering wheel. I ran my fingers over the silver symbol, and I could have sworn I felt a vibration riveting off of it. Ben came walking up and poked his head in the passenger window. So look, you can just take it if you want. It's baffling, but it works, Ben said to me. I will, yeah. I'll make sure you have your baked goods this weekend, I told him. After doing the usual boring adult stuff that comes with having a mechanic look at your car, I drove off and drove into town. I took the hard, sharp left that usually made the car engine give off a burnt smell. I took the turn with ease. The car glided around the corner like I was floating on water. I almost forgot that I was driving my car, as it was completely silent driving it. I did some errands for my wife, with little to no effort thanks to the car. Then I drove home. I explained everything to my wife, and she stood there rather confused. So it just works now? What are we going to do? We still going to sell it? My wife asked. Yes, I don't know. I honestly am thinking about it. We don't need the space of it anymore, I replied. This conversation spanned over several days. We looked at other cars, we checked out people who was willing to sell their cars, and over the span of several days, we had a few options. Eventually, Boo caught on, and after a few days, she approached me. Dad, you can't get rid of Finn, Boo said to me with a sad look. Who's Finn, honey? I asked back. The car. He's part of the family, Dad, Boo complained. I chuckled slightly. Her adorable expression made me smile. I turned to her. I chuckled slightly. Her adorable expression made me smile. I turned to her and leant forward so we were eye to eye. Okay, look. I know we all love the car. We love jamming to the radio, but sometimes adult things have to be done. As Dad, I have to make sure this house, Mom, you, and your brother, the fridge, the car is all taken care of, I told her. No, Dad, you can't get rid of Finn. He's relying on us, Boo said. I looked at her funny. It's just a car, honey, and right now getting rid of it is on the table. Still, might not happen, I told her. No, Dad, we have to keep him safe, Boo yelled, and then stormed off. I found Boo's behavior very strange. She seemed very attached to the car all of a sudden. She loved the radio. She had a record of falling asleep in the back of the car on any journey longer than 35 minutes long. But her attitude towards the possibility of the car being sold was out of the blue and very strange. After dinner, I pulled her to one side and tried to talk to her again. Honey, why do you keep saying that we have to keep the car? I asked. 'Cause he needs us, Dad, just as much as we need him, Boo replied. But you know it's just a car, right? I asked her. He has a name, Boo muttered under her breath. I then left her to herself. I went to the car. I sat in the passenger side and raided the glove compartment, looking for documents for the car. I had misplaced them somewhere, thought the car was a good place to look. I caught a glimpse of the silver face symbol on the steering wheel. I leaned over and placed my finger on it. Then suddenly the radio turned on, playing some metal music. I switched it off. I tried to switch it off, but even with me turning the radio off, it still played. I slammed my hand on the radio and it finally turned off. I looked at the radio confused, and I honestly thought I was going insane. I climbed out of the car, and I slammed the door. I walked away, pressing the keys so that the car would lock. It beeped, signaling it was locked. Then it beeped again. I stopped in my tracks. I turned around and opened the car door. I closed it and I pressed the keys and watched it lock. Then it beeped again, unlocked. Once again, all by itself. I looked at the car stunned. Between the radio and it unlocking itself, I truly believed I was going insane. I rubbed my eyes and gave up the fight for sanity. I headed back into the house. I decided not to tell my wife about the crazy 2 minutes in the driveway. But it played in my mind. It made going to sleep very hard. I looked at my clock. It said it was midnight. I sighed and climbed out of bed. I headed to the kitchen and got myself a glass of water. I looked out the window and noticed the car was gone. I bolted outside. My bare feet touching the cold concrete made me silently yelp. I looked around and saw nothing. No sign of it being stolen, no broken glass, or anything of the sort. When suddenly I could hear talking and laughter. I recognized the small little girly laugh. It was Boo. I quickly sped past the side of the house and found Boo talking to some big robot. I stood there in shock.
Well, this is awkward,
the robot said. Boo ran at me and held her hands out like she was defending the very big robot from little old me. Dad, please don't hurt Finn, Boo pleaded. Finn? That's what you called the car, I barked in fear.
Oh, yeah, sorry about the car, but, I had to find some cover. I didn't realize I was gonna be handed to a nice family.
The robot said awkwardly. Wait, you were my car? I asked it. I was very sure I could hear my heart beat in my ears. I was kind of scared, worried about Boo, but really intrigued at the same time.
Oh, yeah, I am. Well, hang on. Maybe it's just easier if I show you.
The robot replied, still acting jumpy. Then the robot knelt down and parts of him started shifting. His body morphed and he transformed into my car. My mouth dropped open and I was shocked and impressed at the same time. You are my car, I blurted. Finn then transformed back and sat down.
Yes, but I wasn't always. I had to hide. I saw the car in the car repair place and thought it looked kind of cool,
Finn told me. See, Dad, he needs our help. Bad people are after him, Boo said to me. Her face was all scrunched up in annoyance. Wait, you said you had to hide. Who are these bad people you're hiding from? I asked. I was still shaking, but my protective father instincts kicked in.
Oh, very nasty Decepticon called Bullet Shell. Nasty, mean assassin type deal. Sent here to kill me, because I have valuable information about the location of one of the Decepticons,
Finn explained in a panic. I looked over at Boo, who looked at me with a smart-ass look. Let me guess, you're going to translate all that, I asked her. Yeah, he's an Autobot, the good guys. Bullet Shell is a Decepticon, the bad guys. They come from the planet called Cybertron. They were at war, and he was a big old wuss, Boo explained, pointing at the robot. Wait, hang on, alien? He's a robot alien? I lost it. I actually lost it. I am going nuts. I must have hit my head, or I was in a car accident, and I am in a coma. Maybe your mom killed me. Oh God, I hope not. I mumbled to myself. I was sure I was dreaming.
Dad, sir, I am so sorry about, dressing like your car and for talking to your little offspring over there. She's really cool. Such a nice person. Gave me company. I was kind of lonely for the last couple weeks, but I'll get out of your hair,
Finn told me. He got up and started walking away. He stepped over us in one big stride. I then realized that my daughter wasn't getting up every night to talk to some alien robot. Well, she was, but she was doing it to give him company to be his friend. He wasn't a monster or a criminal, scary or dangerous. If my little girl befriended an alien robot and hung out with him for almost a week, then he must be all right, which also means this Decepticon fella must be bad news. And I would be a terrible father if I wasn't going to help my daughter's new friend. Hey, Finn, wait. Maybe we can help, I called out. Finn turned around and looked at me with a happy expression.
Yes, Dad?
Finn replied. First off, I am her dad. You can call me Jared. And second of all, what can we do to help? I asked him.
Wait, you want to help me? Seriously, Dad? I mean, Jared?
Finn asked. He looked rather shocked. Yes, if we can help, then why not? I said with a small grin. I then told both of them that before we did anything, we would have to get some sleep. So I told Boo to go to bed, and then I told Finn to stay in my car for him. Which was a weird sentence to say. I told both of them that in the morning we would help Finn. He said he needed to get to a cell phone tower to use it to send a message into space, which by far is the strangest thing I have ever said. So I went to bed, my mind racing. There was an alien robot hiding in my driveway, and it was pretending to be my car. The next morning we woke up, had breakfast, and I waved off my wife and Connie. My son had a camping trip with his football club, and he got a lift with his friends. The drive was at least 2 hours, so my wife went along so that the mother of his friend had some company on the way back. As soon as they were out of sight, me and Boo jumped in and slammed the doors. I went to go turn the key, but the car revved to life by itself.
Sorry, Dad. Thought it'd be easier if I drove.
Finn told me. I nodded my head slowly, still finding it weird my car could talk. The car drove off and headed out of town. I kept looking out the windows. It felt like something was watching us. I felt very anxious. I looked at Boo, who sat there with a small grin. The girl didn't understand the danger, hence why I did not tell my wife. We came up to the cell phone tower. It stood tall in a very large field, with trees on the edge. We climbed out of the car, and then Finn transformed and stood tall. Okay, now what? I asked the Autobot.
I just need to angle the audio trajectory and broaden the range, so I can send my General Ironhide a message.
Finn told me. Mind if I ask what the message is? I asked him as he attached a rather technologically advanced-looking device to the cell phone tower.
Well, my race has been here before, several times actually, but the humans banished us from Earth, and seems like you rid us from all your history. My leader, Optimus, left Earth and took us with him. We tried to rebuild. There was some sightings of Decepticon leaders being revived, so I was sent to check it out and make sure his remains stayed remains, which was in your ocean somewhere. But when I got to his location, his body was gone. His body was no longer swimming with the fishes.
Finn explained. Boo looked at me and shrugged her shoulders. I rubbed my eyes and took a deep breath. Just then, a siren started going off behind me. I turned around to see a police car. I sighed long and hard, and the panic started thumping in my chest faster than my heart could. The police officer walked up to me, his hand placed on his holster, glaring at me the entire time. So, someone want to explain why there's a robot checking out the phone tower? The officer asked. Well, I'm sorry, you're not freaked out? I barked at the officer. Then Boo walked over to the police car as the officer looked at me. Is it weird? I think I've seen that robot before, the officer muttered. I noticed something strange about the officer. He stood funny and he talked kind of odd, like he learned how to talk from an old black and white movie. Then Boo started screaming and we both turned to her as she ran towards me. I grabbed her and lifted her up. Dad, the police car is a bad guy and he has an evil face on the front of it, Boo screamed. Then the police officer glitched away, like static rubbed him out of existence. Suddenly, the police car transformed into a taller, lankier robot with claws and a mean face.
Well, you found me out, smart girl.
The evil robot snarled. Finn jumped over us and landed in front of us, blocking us from bullet shell.
Leave them alone! They were trying to help me!
Finn barked at the Decepticon. Then suddenly, the Decepticon hand turned into a big blade and he swung for Finn, catching him in the shoulder. A piece of metal hit the ground. I ducked down and used my arms to cover Boo. I looked up to see Finn jump at this bullet shell, knocking him off his feet. The pair of them engaged in a tussle. Finn's hand shifted into an axe and swung into the Decepticon's side. I picked up Boo and we ran behind the phone tower and we ducked down, so we could still see Finn fighting, but we gave ourselves some distance. Then I noticed the device above our heads.
Dad, connect the two white wires and pull the lever up, please!
Finn called out as he was thrown over the Decepticon's shoulder. Dad, please help him, Boo yelled at me. I sighed and then grabbed onto the metal bars that built the tower, and I pulled myself up, placing my feet between the bars, and I climbed a couple feet up before reaching the device. I then used one arm and my feet to brace myself steady, and I then found both white wires. I clicked them together. Then I grabbed the lever, and with a bit of a push, and the lever went up. Then there was a strange humming sound coming from the device.
Yes, Dad! You did it! Nice one!
Finn barked. I tried to climb down, but Bullet Shell kicked Finn in the head, knocking him down. Then he lunged at me. Finn managed to jump on him, pinned him to the ground, but the shockwave of them hitting the ground made the phone tower shake. I lost my grip and I fell. I waved my arms trying to grab anything. Then, as I fell, as if it were in slow motion, Finn stamped on Bullet Shell and dived forward, landing on his knees, hands out, and I landed in his palms. I sat up in a panic, my heart racing. I looked down at Boo, who stood there cheering. Finn put me down gently, and Boo came running over to me. She dived into my arms.
So, Dad, Jared, sir, thank you. Now I can rest easy knowing full well my message got back to the other Autobots.
Finn said to me. Then Bullet Shell stood up and swung his sword. Me and Boo stumbled backwards as Finn turned around and caught the Decepticon's wrist. Then his other hand turned into a blaster cannon.
Leave Boo alone!
Finn growled. Then he rammed his cannon into the underplate of the robot's chest. Then the cannon fired, causing the whole torso to explode. The Decepticon dropped to its knees and fell over lifeless. The light in his eyes flickered, then died out. Finn's cannon shifted back to his hand. Then he knelt down and looked down at us. Dad, now what do we do? Boo asked. I could see the worry in her eyes. Well, Finn, now what happens? I asked the Autobot.
Well, now I wait. I guess I will hit the road.
Finn said with a sad expression. He stood up and started to walk off. I then had Boo look at me with a frown. I took a deep breath and rubbed my eyes. Finn, I don't know where you're going, I called out. Finn stopped and turned around.
What do you mean?
Finn replied. You got rid of my car and replaced it. If you're staying on Earth, then you can repay your debt by being my car, I told him. Do you mean it, Dad? Boo cheered.
Oh my god, can I still call you Dad?
Finn asked with a grin. No, Jared is fine, I muttered.
Hey, Boo, Dad said I can stay.
Finn said to her with a cheer, completely ignoring me. Thanks, Dad, Boo said, nudging me with her elbow. Finn then transformed back into my car, and we both climbed in. Don't thank me just yet, I told her. Why? Boo asked. We have to explain this to your mother, I told her as the car drove off by itself. I kept my hands on the steering wheel, giving the illusion that I was the one driving.
It's okay, Dad. She'll warm up to me. You did over time.
Finn chuckled as we headed home. I sat in my robot alien car, dreading the conversation ahead of me.
And there you have it, guys. Another installment to If You Give a Dad question mark. This is one of my favourite series to write. It's a lot of fun, and like I said before, Jared's ideas are put into this. Everything that you see in this story is exactly how Jared actually would do if he ever got given whatever the prompt is. So, a big shout out to Jared, and a huge shout out to If You Give a Dad a Podcast. Make sure you check him out, because it's a very good podcast, and he interviews big time wrestlers, some amazing voice actors, and some decent people, like Mark the Cornish Ranger, that cosplay dude 637 guy, all those weird people. And fun fact, we've also branched off, and I'm also one of the leading roles in the branch If You Give a Dad a YouTube channel, which you can find here on YouTube. Its introduction video is already uploaded, so make sure you go check out that video as well on the If You Give a Dad a YouTube channel. I'm working under Jared, which is awesome. That being said, make sure you check out the other Tiger Tales channels. We have Tiger Tales, Game Over, and Tiger Tales Mysterious Origins. 3 different YouTube channels which revolve with more fanfictions, original stories, and the such, and you can find fantastic storytelling among all 3, so make sure you go check them out. Make sure you check out Tiger Tales X, where you'll find more fanfictions, but this time it's official crossovers. I'm getting 2 different franchises and writing stories where they cross over. For an example, Ben 10 Alien Force and Doctor Who. Make sure you check out the Zero to Hero podcast and its community. Big shout out to them. And of course, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Thank you everyone for listening, and I shall see you guys real soon.
That before we can...
Don't touch my Pringles.